Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to today's podcast. Welcome to the Young Smirks podcast. We have a very special guest today, Sheikh Abu Usama. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah?
My brother,
No,
John Fontaine.
I'm so happy to see you again. Alhamdulillah.
It's my pleasure, man. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to our community here in Liverpool.
Yeah.
We have met a few years ago back in the Holy Land of Mecca. And then we went to Medina and we met up again. And now we're here in the UK in my community in Liverpool. So we lay out for you the red carpet of our hospitality. It's a pleasure having you here.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Sheikh, it's been a pleasure spending the past couple of days here, showing me around, showing what it takes to be an imam, subhanAllah. That's it's very eye-opening, subhanAllah. It's not an easy job.
It's not an easy job, but it is fulfilling and it's rewarding. Yeah. It's a jihad, a struggle. Yeah. But I thank Allah for the opportunity to be able to work with the Muslims and for the Muslims, as opposed to being tried with what a lot of Muslims are tried with, where they have to work with non-Muslims who it can be quite daunting and difficult because of the language and what they do. So it is a ni'mah, no doubt about it.
Sheikh, subhanAllah, basically I set up this podcast and basically I'm trying to introduce the general Muslim to people like yourself, people who have studied Islam, people who have had a journey, because you were not always a Muslim.
Yeah, that's correct. May Allah bless you for the effort of setting up the podcast. I think this is the first podcast that I've ever participated in. And I think it was only appropriate that historically it would be someone who I love, I respect. I had an interview similar to this a few days ago, and I hope we can touch upon that a little bit. But I think brothers like you and other brothers who are trying to, inshallah, utilize the technology and the language of the day that the millennials understand, I think it's our responsibility to spread the message in this way. So it gives me a great pleasure to be introduced to your viewers.
Which state, where did you grow up?
My family, my peoples are originally from North Carolina for the most part. They're from a place called Gastonia, Bessemer City, and some other pockets of North Carolina. They migrated to the north and they settled in New Jersey. So I'm actually from New Jersey on the East Coast. That's next to New York, Connecticut, the tri-state area. And that's where I accepted al-Islam in 1986 at the tender age of 22 years old. So I come from New Jersey.
I was born in 86.
MashaAllah.
So subhanAllah. Yeah, so how did you find Islam? Like what was...
Coming from that area, al-Islam was there. And that's because of the efforts of people from the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad and his son, and Imam Warithuddin Muhammad, rahmatullahi alayhi. That area was saturated with a lot of activities by the Nation of Islam. So people were exposed to Muslims and Muslim names, although they were not really practicing Islam. Clearly, the Nation of Islam is not really Islam. But because they were using Islamic terminology and they were claiming to be al-Islam, and that call helped to clean up the lives of many African Americans, it resonated with me as a youngster. So when I started to go out to search for Islam in a place called Paterson, New Jersey, that's where I embraced al-Islam. There was a brother, I would like to mention his name. His name is Amir Pasha. May Allah have mercy upon him.
Amen.
I was in the, I don't know how can I describe it. I would describe it as the special university. Some of the brothers know what I'm talking about when I say that. I was in a special university at that time. And this brother used to come to give dawah to us in that university. And the way that he gave dawah was very simple and it was comprehensive to me, and I accepted Islam. When I got out of that university, matriculated, and I finished what I had to do there, I met some brothers from that area and began to see they didn't know much about al-Islam. But to their credit, and this is why I'm paying homage to this man, he knew how to give dawah and what to talk about, because he knew what to talk about to me. But I wanted to be a real Muslim, and I wanted to grow, and I wanted to develop. And then I went to Newark, New Jersey, and East Orange, New Jersey, where I met my first teacher, a brother by the name of Imam Ahmed Burhani. I'm indebted to him, and I'm indebted to the brothers who were around Imam Ahmed Burhani, who is still alive. He's in Newark, New Jersey, East Orange, New Jersey at this time. He went to study in Saudi Arabia for some time, so he had been exposed to Arabic language. And he had a core group of brothers around him in a real community dealing with addressing the issues and the challenges of their community. Brothers like my big brother Mustafa Shakur, Alif Mustafa Shakur, and other brothers who I, to this day, yes, I graduated from Medina, and those brothers didn't. But I owe a great debt of gratitude to how they were mentoring me. And I've never forgotten that about them. I've never forgotten that about them.
You know, subhanAllah, it's so important to remember the people that made sense to you in them early years. Sometimes they're not scholars, they're not students of knowledge, just basic people giving the basic message of Islam. And it you know, you see something in it and you remember them for that.
This is absolutely true, brother. And unfortunately, Akhi John Fontaine, a lot of our brothers, as we get more knowledge, we lose common sense. Like just having the insaniya, the respect to appreciate people who helped you. And there's a hadith that we can parrot it off, maybe even in Arabic, but do we understand it and do we practice it? The Prophet, he says, Sallallaahu alayhi wa sallam, Man lam yashkur an-nas, lam yashkur Allah. Whoever doesn't thank the people, he hasn't thanked Allah. So I have to thank that brother, Amir Pasha. Although he didn't have a lot of knowledge and we were clashing because I was young and I knew what he was teaching wasn't correct, but I didn't disrespect him. And now, this many years fast forwarded, I appreciate him. And another example of that is Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X. Every time I go to Hajj, as I'm going to go to Hajj inshallah in about another 2 weeks, I take my sons to the airport and I make a video, and I always pay homage to Malcolm X because it was the first autobiography that I read. First book that I ever read was called Man, Child, in the Promised Land by Claude Brown. And it opened up my eyes to the world of literature, that you can actually get lost in reading things. It's not a religious book, obviously, but after reading that book, I read Malcolm X. And that was the book, more than any other thing, that was the impetus and the genesis for me to really, really look for what is real Islam. So I stand on the shoulders of iconic personalities like Malcolm X. And I will even say like Elijah Muhammad. But in saying like Elijah Muhammad, it's not from the angle of praising him and raising him up. No, it's from the angle that the Prophet said about that man, Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam, when the companions were engaged and participating in a campaign against the non-Muslims, and they were fighting. And there was one man who was really prolific, and he was really getting busy and dealing with the non-Muslims. The companions saw him really getting busy. So they say, Ya Rasulullah, this man was really, really doing a wonderful job, an amazing job in fighting and killing the non-Muslims. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, due to revelation and due to being told, not because he knows the unseen, he said that man is from the people of the hellfire. The companions were shocked. And although they saw the man was doing a good job, when the Prophet said what he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had no doubt that what he was saying was true. And that's the sign of the true Muslim. As Allah said in the Quran, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُمْ الْخِيرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. It's not acceptable, befitting for believing man, believing woman, if Allah or His Messenger decides something to have any say so. You have to do what has been established. Anyway, when they engaged the non-Muslims again, it just happened that someone stabbed that man. The non-Muslim stabbed that man, and he didn't have sabr. So in his state of agony, he put his sword in the ground and he threw himself on the sword, thus committing suicide. And committing suicide is one of the major sins in Islam. So when the companions saw that that man committed suicide, they know there are a hadith, anyone who kills himself, he'll kill himself in the knot of Jahannam in the same way he committed suicide. If he jumped off of a high place, he'll continuously jump off a high place. If he took poison, he'll continually poison himself. If he stabbed himself, whatever, shot himself, he'll continually do that. May Allah save us and help us and all people who are tried with thinking about committing suicide. Anyway, when they told the Prophet about what happened, Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam, he said, and this is the point about Elijah Muhammad, Inna Allah layansur hadha deen birajulin fajir. It is possible that Allah can help his religion, will help his religion with an evil man. Someone who's a non-Muslim, someone who's an evil man. This is possible. Allah can and will help his religion with someone who is an evil man.
SubhanAllah.
So Elijah Muhammad didn't call to al-Islam, but the dawah that he was on, the group that he had, it gave some exposure to my community, African Americans in the East Coast, and other than that, gave them exposure to a thing that is known as al-Islam. And they came full circle with his son, Warith ad-Din Muhammad, Ghafarallahu lana wa lahu wa rahimahullahu ta'ala.
You know, one of the strong points with a lot of the community work they were doing, cleaning up the community, being part of the community. And this is something I've actually seen in you, spending the past couple of days with you here in Liverpool. SubhanAllah. You know, I will honestly say, SubhanAllah, people who think they know you, watching your, your videos online, they may have been following you for the past 20 years. I will honestly say you don't know the Sheikh until you come to Liverpool and see the way you are moving in the streets. You know, was walking down the streets, you're saying hello to the old ladies, you're saying salam to everyone, the non-Muslims, the Muslims, everyone knows you. You're patting them on the back. SubhanAllah, every age group from small kids all the way up to 80-year-old men, they have this love for you. You know, you've come into a community which SubhanAllah, you've had a few disagreements with the community. You don't agree with everything in the community. But I think this has actually, personally, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's brought something out of you which maybe wouldn't have come out of you in, say, like when you was in Green Lane and something like that. I feel that there's something else here. What do you think about that?
I think it's a fair assessment and a good observation. I mean, first of all, as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq used to say, may Allah be pleased with him, he was a wali from the awliya of Allah. And when people used to say positive things about him in his face, and Al-Albani used to say this all the time too, Rahmatullahi alayhi, and Imam Al-Albani, Sheikh Al-Albani, he used to say, oh Allah, don't hold me accountable for what they're saying, and make me better than what they're saying. Make me better than what's being said. And there's some other stuff connected to that. We ask Allah to accept it from us and to make it, sincere and for its sake alone. But in actuality, although the community, the fiber of the community, the fabric of the community is a bit different than Green Lane in some ways, in that it's a smaller place and we're closer knit. And in this area that surrounds the mosque, we're all Muslims from all parts of the world. We have about 60 different ethnic groups in our community. People from Indonesia, Malaysia, people from all over the Arab world, all over Africa. And we live around this mosque. So by default, I'm just going to meet everybody and know everybody. So coming to the masjid, going around the different areas that I visit, going to meet my community members and give them love, especially the younger people and the older people. And that helped to galvanize support, because when I came here, all of the jama'at of al-Islam just about are here. The Ikhwan Muslimin from every country with the nuances that they bring to the table. From Egypt, from Iraq, from Syria, from Jordan, from Pakistan, from India, from everywhere. Sufis in my masjid, liberals in my masjid, Jamaat Tabligh in my masjid. Some young brothers from the Ghulat are in my masjid, and they're the most disruptive group, if I have to be honest with you. Instead of helping the dawah of the Sunnah go forward, you know, they want to sabotage it and tell these regular people he's a mubtadi. Who's a mubtadi? Just unbelievable. But the point is, in having all of those different people, now your skills as a da'i are really tested, because these people are not singing from the same hymn book as you are. So you have to be easy with them. You have to be gentle with them. You have to be tolerant with them. You have to be wise with them. It makes no sense for me to engage these people in those things that are above their heads, or it's going to run them away. The Prophet used to warn against that. And he said to the people, Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam, Inna fikum munaffirin. Some of you people, you make the people run away from Islam. You're too rough, you're too tough, or whatever the issue is. Abdullah bin Mas'ud and Ali bin Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with both of them. And this is really important for all of us, mothers, fathers, any youngsters, anybody who's giving dawah. Ali bin Abi Talib and Abdullah bin Mas'ud, they said, both of them, talk to the people, give dawah to the people based upon their level of understanding. Do you want them to reject Allah and His Messenger? The other one said, radiyallahu anhuma, you will not talk to the people and tell them about some speech that they don't comprehend, except it's going to be a fitna to some of them. So what had happened, I just gave you an example. My brother, Mufti Muneer, Muhammad Mufti Muneer. I think that brother and a lot of the other young brothers will say, when I was in East Orange, New Jersey, I used to try to give love to all of the younger brothers coming up. Shadid, Muhammad, even those brothers, Hassan, Malik, and all of those brothers. I would try to be supportive of those brothers. I never had jealousy and I never had hatred towards them. But my brother, Mufti Muneer, he was giving some fatwas to a group of people in his community, addressing the issues of those people in that community. And some of those questions were sexual in nature. And he's talking to a group of people based upon their understanding. Some people took that recording and spread it to people who are not from that community, who may not be dealing with or facing those particular dynamics of those specific people. And as a result of that, his words were a fitna for other people. And that's why it may not have necessarily been wise for him to record that and to let it go out. I'm not criticizing him as a person, but that was a learning curve, and I hope that he learned from that. But the point here is, حدث الناس على قدر عقولهم. Talk to the people based upon their level of understanding. So here in my community, that's how our dawah is. Trying to call to the Kitab and the Sunnah, the way the companions understood it, but taking into account, I have people in my community who are from the Rafi. This is the Central Mosque in Liverpool. This is the main mosque right here. So if someone dies, as you've been here 2 days, we have prayed over and washed about 7 bodies in 2 days. We're always washing bodies. So someone from Iran dies in this community. I don't come and open up his chest to see if he cursed the companions. That's not my job. So I don't know anything about him. He is majhul, unknown to me. I don't know him. So what I do, if someone dies from Iran, we get his body washed and I pray over him. But before the salat of any Iranian, I get on the minbar, because the Prophet ﷺ used to get on the minbar for the khutbah to Juma. And if something was important happened, he would get on the minbar. And as soon as he got on the minbar, the companions knew, this thing is important. So we utilize the minbar to practice that sunnah. For any of the brothers who have a masjid and you have a minbar, don't just leave it there for Friday. So I get on that minbar and then I start talking about the virtues of Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman specifically, and then the companions generally, radiyallahu anhum, so as to directly and indirectly give dawah to the people who come from Iran to say, hey, we don't curse the companions in this religion. And whoever does that, he has no religion. And I have to say this once again, in 2019, on this day, the last day of my life that I'm living right now. One time I said, I saw in Abu Bakr and Umar something that doesn't allow me to take everything from them. Meaning I don't blindly follow them because I don't see them as being infallible like the Prophet Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam. But that wasn't the best way of saying that. So I want to make that clear again, although some people are still using that against me to keep brothers away from listening to me because I'm against Abu Bakr and Umar. And yet we get on the minbar to tell people, hey, Abu Bakr and Umar, they are the deen. Some of the
it wasn't about their status, it's about the status of the Prophet.
Exactly,
that's
brother.
What you
that was the point. Some of the scholars said, Surat Al-Fatiha, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. They said that the Sirat al-Mustaqim, guide us to the Sirat al-Mustaqim, is the Sirat of Abu Bakr and Umar. And by default, the rest of the companions, radiallahu anhum. So back to the square. As it relates to my community, we have to be in the community and we can't be people who are just singing to the choir.
Yeah.
Our dawah should go out to the Muslims who are not upon what we're on, and also go out to the non-Muslims as well. So we have schools that are coming here that are not Muslims. Some of them come, there's a lot of hesitation and trepidation. They don't know, are we going to hurt their children? Their parents come as chaperones. And then when they come and they hear the message that we celebrate diversity in this city of Liverpool. Liverpool used to be a very important international city, like Paris, New York.
Even
like
yesterday,
London.
you were showing us around. You were showing us the
slaves.
Places where the slave masters
That's
and
where
things
they
like
used to bring slaves here. This place has the very first Chinatown in all of Europe. Has the first mosque right here in the UK. So it is culturally rich.
I think the first Muslims also came here, the Yemenis, right?
Yeah, the first Muslims who came, they were sailors who came from Yemen and from Somalia. They came, and when they docked at the Liverpool dock, they threw their anchors overboard and they said, we're staying here. And they set up shop. They married the local women, the Scousers. Some of them went back and brought their wives here. And now they have a vibrant community, Yemenis and Somalis. But unfortunately, and this is what you'll find in the UK, a lot of our youngsters are involved in gun crime. They're involved in knife crimes. They're killing each other and stabbing each other. And we're not exempt from that. I've been here almost 3 years. This was the third Ramadan that I've been here. We must have had about 20 or so youngsters that have been stabbed or shot to death. One or two didn't die. In Manchester, in London.
London's even worse.
It's even worse. I just saw a picture on WhatsApp. My brother Musa from Uganda sent it to me, where someone who was in a window in a building, they took a picture of a kid who was on a gurney. He had a massive hole in his chest. I don't know how that could have happened because it didn't look like a gun wound. But you know, these kids are carrying knives and axes. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And a lot of times it's Muslims belonging to one gang fighting against Muslims that are belonging to another gang. So now the question is, John Fontaine.
You know, Sheikh,
before I forget, because you know I'm old and I'll forget. Does it make sense for me as an imam to busy my community and these youngsters with a sheikh in Saudi Arabia said this about this man, and another sheikh in Yemen said this about this man, and I'm going back and forth in my community about this issue, and I'm expecting my community members to have wala and bara on these issues while our kids are killing each other and being killed by each other. It doesn't make any sense. It's
and losing the deen as well.
They're losing the deen.
Dying and killing each other as Muslims, one thing. People are leaving Islam. You know, I just got a message. There's I'm not going to say the town, but there's a town in England. Already they have 3 Muslim sisters who are saying they want a sex change. Teenagers, 12 years old. You know, so we've got these huge issues in the community. And this is not praising you. What I'm saying is you've actually studied properly. You know, you've actually been away and studied with scholars. You've been to the Middle East. You spent time outside of the West. But you're coming back and actually using the knowledge. You know, you're doing something with it. You know.
Yeah, I had that opportunity of studying, and alhamdulillah, that's been very beneficial. And I will say that the scholars of Saudi Arabia, they have virtues over us. Lahum fadlun alayna. They have virtues because they helped us to get on the Sunnah. and they helped and they saved us from not understanding what real Islam was when we were knocking about in America looking for the truth. Because I started with the American Muslim Mission, and then I found Jamaat Tabligh for a minute, and it was with Jamaat Tabligh, and I was only with them for a hot minute. It was with them that I said to myself, if I don't get an opportunity to learn this language, then I'm going to be left to the devices of whoever is in America talking whatever they're talking. And I went to Saudi Arabia, alhamdulillah, and that was a ni'mah. But I have to have enough sense, and other brothers have to have enough sense. Respecting them is one thing, but superimposing Saudi Arabian culture upon the communities that we come from is not Islamic, and it doesn't make sense. And the scholars of Saudi Arabia, they represent some of the scholars of the Muslim world. They are scholars in Libya, in Morocco, in Pakistan, in Egypt, in Syria, in Jordan, and all over the world. And for that reason, the Sheikh Abdul Muhsin al-Abad, Hafidhullah, when he wrote that book, treatise, O Ahl Sunnah, be gentle with Ahl Sunnah. In his advice, he said, I advise you, brothers, to return your affairs back to the major scholars of Saudi Arabia. I love the book, I love the Sheikh, but I don't accept that particular point of advice. And I know what he meant. That's what he knows, and he respects that particular body. So he advised with that. And I don't think you can go wrong if you do that. But there are other bodies of scholars in the countries we come from. So we had this thing about he doesn't refer back to the scholars, means Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. No, Saudi Arabia has good scholars on the Sunnah. And as I said, other countries, Uzbekistan, other countries, they have their ulama. Because people have their own unique circumstances. Now, that does not mean, as I hear some people saying in the West, for an example, or in America, that we are the scholars of those lands. We're not scholars. We're students of knowledge on varying degrees, but we don't have to tie ourselves to one country or one group of scholars, or to one or two or three scholars, or one body of scholars. Because Allah did not make the haqq munhasira. The haqq is not contained in no one man or two men or three men or four men or a group of body of major scholars. The haqq is not with them. They don't. They are not the ijma'. So,
Sheikh, on this point, the past week or so, there has been some statements by someone from the West who said some statements in terms of where they kind of disconnecting themselves from the scholars. I mean, of course, as you're saying, these scholars are all over the world, but the inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ are the scholars. We're not talking about, with the Akita and the methodology of the Prophet ﷺ. And some of these statements I've found a bit problematic, and I've asked for some people of knowledge to kind of comment on them. There's been a few videos which have been raised, but in terms of things like Akida, things like this, how should we study these points? And although, as we're saying, it's not just about scholars from the Gulf, there are scholars in different countries, but how do we identify what scholars we should go to in terms of studying the actual Akida of Islam?
Well, I want you to remember that point if I forget to come back to it. But there was something that you said previously that I want to touch upon as well very quickly. You said that there is a town in which 3 Muslim sisters want to change their sex. These are real issues, brother. Right here. You didn't name that town. I'm telling you, right here in my masjid.
In Liverpool.
In Liverpool, in my masjid. There was a man who embraced Islam, and he's in the process of going through a sex change. And I met him, and I sat with him to try to deal with the situation, because he's not outside of the fold of Islam for what he's doing, but he's a revert of the religion, and he's in the middle of the process. So my point is, this is real stuff, man. This is the reality on the ground, brother. So I have to find out, and I have to figure out, what do we do with him?
And this isn't something you can just sweep under the carpet.
I can't.
This is out in the open. you know.
You can't. So if we allow him to pray Juma in prayer with the men as he was created, it's a problem because he appears to have characteristics of a woman. If we allow him to pray with the women, it's a problem because the women don't want that. And he's not a complete woman. He's not a woman. You understand what I'm saying? And if you say to him, I'm going to put you and isolate you in a room by yourself for Juma, he can go to the authorities and say, they're discriminating against me.
Yeah.
So when they find me discriminating against him, I get splashed on the newspaper and the TV, and I become the nonviolent extremist while you and I are at each other's throats because that sheikh said he doesn't like this one and that one doesn't like that one, and you and me are busy being stuck on stupid dealing with this issue that really is irrelevant in comparison. I just wanted to make that point because these are real live issues.
It's not just a segregated case.
As it relates to Akita and studying Akita, we take our Akita from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who described himself, and he described himself with names and attributes, and he knows himself better than anyone else. And we take it from the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallaahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam, who knew the words of Allah better than anyone else. He was taught the Quran and the meaning of the Quran directly. Subhanahu wa ta'ala made sure that the Prophet Sallallaahu alayhi wa sallam was the one, the Rasul, the Nabi who explained this religion. And he explained Allah's names and attributes and issues of Aqidah and theology, explained it to the companions. The companions didn't ask when they heard these things concerning Allah's names and attributes and these different aspects of what we believe in our theology. They didn't ask how, when, why. They didn't do that. They said, we hear and we obey. So what they did is what we do. Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he said to the people, ittabi'u wa la tabtadi'u, qad kufitum. Follow and don't introduce and make up. Because in what the companions were doing, it's enough for you. That's the blueprint for success. That's the template. If someone comes now, 1,440 years later, 2019, someone comes now and says, no, I found a way that is better. I found a way and I choose a way that's different than theirs, then that person is halik, as the Prophet says, Sallallaahu alayhi wa sallam. No one will leave what I brought, which is clear, except that he will be destroyed. He's going to destroy himself. And we ask Allah to protect us from that.
You know, this statement is very similar to how what this individual was speaking about. It reminded me of how Christian creed has developed. You know, how they've come away from the religion of Isa and they've formulated their own religion, their own Akita basically. But ours is formulated from the beginning, from the Prophet Sallallaahu alayhi wa sallam. The deen is complete and we take from the early
everything
sources.
That we need to know, as I told you, about Allah, who he is, what he does, who he isn't, what he doesn't do, where he is, where he's not. And we don't know everything about Allah Azza wa Jal, but what he told us about himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is there in the Quran and the Prophet brought it, Sallallaahu alayhi wa sallam, and we don't have to look anywhere else. And you're right. What happened to the Yahud and the Nasara is that they started making up things until finally came up with a version of God that is not even correct. And they had ikhtilaf about who God is and who God isn't. Even I hear some of the people from the LGBT community saying she when referring to God. Why can't God be a she? And so forth and so on. In Islam, in Akida, unlike fiqh, because I heard an erroneous statement from this brother that is like the fiqh. Akida is not like fiqh. And fiqh, the masadir of the fiqh, the sources where we say halal haram, Quran, Sunnah, Qiyas, Ijma. There's Qiyas. So we know that crack is haram We know that weed is haram, although Prophet Muhammad didn't have crack of weed.
Yeah.
Hasha lillah. But we know because qiyas with khamr,
Yeah.
intoxicants. In Akita, there is no qiyas. You don't make qiyas. So Akita is not like fiqh in any shape, form, or fashion, except that fiqh rulings are established from Quran and the Sunnah and Ijma. And over here, Akita has its proofs in Quran, Sunnah, and Ijma as well. But there's no qiyas in fiqh. So the scholars of Islam, no doubt, they codified the Aqidah of Islam, meaning from the asul of what the companions were upon and what they believed. And the first generations of Muslims is that they believe this and they believe that and they believe this. Yes, they did that. But the way they believe it, these things come from how we see the companions when the Prophet mentioned things to them, Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Now, of course, Sheikh, we have, of course, under the umbrella of Islam, if you like, we do have people with different Aqidah, which we regard as Muslims, but we believe they have problems in their Aqidah, in how they understand these certain, like the names and attributes of Allah, etc. But we would still refer to them as Muslim, etc. They still come under the fold of Islam. Now, this particular individual was basically saying that, like fiqh, you can choose which Aqidah you want to study. Like for instance, if you want to study the Athari Creed, if you want to study the Ashari Creed, or the Maturidi Creed, he also said, just choose whichever one you want to study. What advice would you give us regarding this?
That's false, and it's dalala. It's not only false and dangerous, but it is going astray. The Prophet used to say every Friday, Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam, whenever he married people on the day of the Eid, whenever he wanted to address the people and they were in the assembly, he would say, every newly invented matter is an innovation, and every innovation is going astray. The Prophet brought, Sallallaahu Alaihi Wasallam, one Aqidah. And this is why you find the companions not having ikhtilaf in Aqidah. You can put on two fingers the issues that there are some differences of opinion, how the companions understood those things. Ad-Dajjal, is he Ibn al-Sayyad? The dead person in the grave, will he be punished by the crying and the wailing of the deceased? Companions took different positions on that. The Khawarij, are they Muslims or not Muslims? There are only a few issues, whereas in fiqh, and there's a proof that Aqidah and fiqh are not the same. In fiqh, just take salat, just take hajj, just take zakat. There are varying positions from the companions in those issues. But in Aqidah, no.
And these are valid positions, valid differences, basically.
Of course, there are differences. We don't even like calling it ikhtilaf, because sometimes I found people have an axe to grind against you and they upset. They'll take that statement the companions had ikhtilaf in some points of Aqidah. They'll go and tell a Sheikh, Abu Usama said that the companions had ikhtilaf in Aqidah. Wallahi, they didn't agree on a few issues. You can count them on 10 fingers. 10 fingers. But there's a lot of issues. There are a lot of issues in Aqidah that they didn't have ikhtilaf. So the point is, it is not permissible for a person to say, you are at your own, you're on your own to choose from the Asha'ira or from this group or that group. And you're free to choose from the Athari way, the Salafi way. It's up to you. It's whatever works with you. That's not true. That's not true, because that's not the understanding that the companions had. And that's not the understanding that the followers of the companions had. Muhammad ibn Sirin told the people, verily this knowledge is your religion, so watch and beware of who you take your religion from. They used to come to Imam Malik, these people of these varying aqidas, and they would say, I would like to debate you about an ayat of the Quran. Ar-Rahman, al-Arsh istawa. Allah is over his throne. Ar-Rahman. So people started differing in that after the companions. They came to Imam Malik. The man said, I want to debate you on that. And Imam Malik said, no, I know my religion. I know where it lies. I know what the Quran said. I know what the companions were saying. So what you do is go look for somebody else to debate them who doesn't know his religion. He asked another man, okay, if I do debate you and you overpower me and you defeat me, what should I do? The man said, you should follow me. Al-Imam Malik said to the man, Rahmatullahi alayhi, and what if I defeat you in the argument? The man said, I will follow you. And Imam Malik then asked him, okay, what if I took your side and you took my side, and then the third man came and he defeated both of us? He said, then we should follow him. And Imam Malik said, I see you as a man who is mutalawwin. You're changing colors. Every time someone comes with you with an argument, first you're on the Akita of this person, the Akita of that person, the Akita of that person. That's your religion. You flip-flopping. You all over the place. You are a hot mess with this understanding. No, we have to have a thabat. We have to be established and firm. And don't worry about how people are looking at you and making fun of you. And Imam al-Awza'i told the people, take the methodology and the way of the predecessors, those companions. And don't be faint-hearted and weak and afraid of the people and the numbers that they have who are following other than that way. So if someone comes with this beautiful speech about how he is open-minded and he is allowing people, don't listen to that. Be stubborn and tenacious in holding on to the way of the companions. And that's what the Prophet says, Sallallaahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Abdu alayha bin nawajid. Hold on to my sunnah and the sunnah of the Khulafa al-Rashidin, those companions. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, may Allah be pleased with them. And the companions. Hold on to it with your molas. Bite on it. Because if a person were to hold something, he can apply so much pressure with his hand. He puts it under his arm, he can apply so much pressure. If he puts it between his neck and his shoulder, so much pressure. He puts it between his knees, so much pressure. But if he puts it in his mouth and he's biting down on, that's the most pressure that he can apply from his body. That's the way of the Prophet saying, Sallallaahu alaihi wasallam, don't open up your minds and to give it to people who come with zukhruful qawl, just beautiful, beautiful, flowery words. You'll wind up in the hellfire with that.
SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. Sheikh, for, of course, a lot of the people who might be listening to the podcast, they're going to be English speakers. They're not going to have access to books in Arabic or even scholars. For the most part, a lot of people don't even have access to students of knowledge, etc. What books in English would you recommend for people who are trying to understand the correct way of Islam?
One thing that I can say that I try to do, John Fontaine, is I try to stay in my lane. I'm not one of those people who tries to be on every ship that leaves the dock. I know what I do, and I try to do what I do the best that I can. And there's a reason why I don't have, alhamdulillah, any envy, inshallah, towards any other da'i. A lot of the problems that we have amongst ourselves, it goes back to desires. Who's getting the most exposure? Who has the most followers? So I know my lane and I know what I do. I'm not that dude who's going to line up the chairs and the cups, and that's not my job. It's my job to come and deliver the khutbah, the lesson, and I know my lane. You actually, brother, may be better equipped to answer that question than I am. And that's because I really don't know with yaqeen, sound knowledge, what books are out there in English. And I'm just saying this because this is my reality. I don't really read English books like that.
Of course, yeah.
But generally speaking, and you would be able to answer that question better than me, but right off the cuff, off the top of my dome, the Book of Allah has been translated into English. The proper Akita, first and foremost, is in the Quran. And then in the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallaahu alaihi wasallam. But both of them are vast. But I'm encouraging people, read the Quran. Read the Quran and come to know what Allah said about himself. And read as much of the Sunnah as possible, because those are the two sources. But as I said, the scholars codified this Akida. So there are certain books that a person can read to make it easier. I found the book of someone who I consider an elder to me. I consider him one of the pioneers of the Stawa of the Sunnah in America and in the West. Abu Amina Bilal Phillips. May Allah bless him
Ameen.
and his efforts and his projects across the globe. Bilal Phillips wrote some plain and simple books. Like I think he has a book called Kitab Tawheed.
Yeah.
Some basic books about what we believe. And it's in a language that any Amr, Bakr, Zayd, Amina, Aisha, Fatima, Khadija, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can understand those books. So read that book that he wrote, Kitab Tawheed. And also the larger book by Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, Rahmatullahi alayhi, Kitab al-Tawheed. Why that book? Because he comes from Saudi Arabia and he's a Wahhabi and I have allegiance to the Wahhabis? Kalla. I don't agree with everything about Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, Rahmatullahi alayhi, or his ikhwan who were with him. I don't agree with everything. But his book is a book that brings verses of the Quran, and then those verses are strengthened with a hadith talking about the same issue, and then he brings the statements of the companions and the tabi'een about how do you understand those issues. And it's a basic, simple, comprehensive book.
Yeah.
So
You know what?
I would say read those books.
Yeah, I agree that. I mean, from my own experience, when I first came to Islam, I found Dr. Bilal Phillips, his books, especially because they were actually authored in English. They were not translations from Arabic. I found them very beneficial, and Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
Bilal Phillips, I have to take this opportunity to say this. Bilal Phillips, brother, when I became a Muslim, I found the American Muslim Mission. I went to the Jamaat Tabligh, and I used to go over to New York City to their main mosque to hang out with them on a weekend. And I found the people from the Ansarullah cult from Brooklyn, New York. They looked attractive. They were wearing phobes, the men. And the way they were dressing, I was a brand spanking new Muslim. I don't know what Islam really is, but they looked attractive to me. And then when I went up to the guys who were selling things at their stalls, the smell, the aromas, that whole thing about, when you become a Muslim. I even remember when I was very young. To this day, if I look into a marble and I see the prisms and the colors, it reminds me of when I was young. So I remember being the first Muslim. If I smell frankincense, if I smell to this day Egyptian musk, it takes me back to those days of Islam when it was simple.
Easiest, very simple. Yeah, subhanAllah.
And Bilal Phillips's books, the Sheikh's books, wallahi, I read Ansarullah cult, that book, and it opened up my eyes that, hey, you got to be careful. These groups are a problem. I mean, generally speaking, these groups. Now, how in the world? I do not agree with everything that a Sheikh Bilal says, and he doesn't expect or want me to agree with everything he says. How can I come now and throw that man off of the Sunnah because he made a mistake here or there, or he doesn't parrot the words that I parrot, nor does he big up the Sheikh that I big up, as opposed to following the hadith. Whoever doesn't thank the people, he hasn't thanked Allah. No, that's not the Sunnah, brother. The Sunnah is to be grateful. And for that reason, we found that the Prophet Sallallaahu alaihi wasallam, when Abdullah ibn Abbas's cousin said, your uncle, Abdul Muttalib, he helped you a lot in this religion. He helped you. He saved you. He helped you. What are you going to do for him? Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Abu Talib, he said, because of me, he will get the least amount of punishment, Yawm al-Qiyamah. And what's the least amount of punishment? Sahih Bukhari. A pair of shoes will be made for him, and they'll put his feet in those shoes in the knot of Jahannam, and so hard it'll ball his brains. But the Prophet appreciated what his uncle did for him, the role that he played. He didn't say dirty, stinking kafir and mushrik that doesn't make his stinja with najas on you. He didn't say that. What kind of dawah is that? What's wrong with you? Our mothers who are non-Muslims. How did you turn around after becoming a Muslim and you're nasty and disrespectful to your mother, your father, who gave you birth, gave you life by Allah's permission? So this is a narrative that I can't really
I've said this many times, and many people know, but Dr. Bilal, it was one of his videos that actually made me become a Muslim. Is my experience in Africa, seeing people messing with the jinn and things like this. And it was a lecture by Dr. Bilal, which was explaining how these things happen, which really switched me. you know, and I've got a lot of very grateful for that.
No doubt, brother.
That help.
No doubt. I remember one time we were new students, and I'll never forget this. Bilal Phillips came to Medina, and when he came to Medina, we were all hanging out in the house of a brother. His name was Ismail. I think Ismail was from Maryland or something like that. I don't know what happened to Ismail. Abu Mahir. He was a very generous brother, and he used to have dinners at his house for the students quite often. And we were a number of brothers who were in the university, and we were quite young. And it was time for Salat al-Maghrib, and we all got up and went to the Masjid, and Dr. Bilal Phillips didn't go. And that's because he was a traveler from Riyadh. We don't know what his background and his story was. He chose not to go. And we all went to the mosque. And when we went to the mosque, some of the brothers were saying, man, he ain't even coming to pray. What's up with that? And it was a thing in their hearts. What's up with that? He ain't even coming to pray. He don't even go to the masjid. And that's what happens when you're young. There's a statement. It's a weak hadith. They say that being young, it's like being crazy. When you're young, you just have these crazy ideas. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ described the Khawarij as being people who are young with crazy ideas. Had the brothers had a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more tolerance, a little bit more patience, and I would even go as far as to say a little bit more sincerity, and step to him and ask him, not accuse him, ask him, Sheikh, why aren't you going to the masjid with us? Why didn't you go? He would have said, I'm sure, because I'm going to pray Maghrib with Isha, because it's not wajib for me to go to the masjid as a musafir. And then we would have just relaxed. And that's why Allah, His Prophet ﷺ told the people, Allah said, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. Let them explain it to you, but don't you become a mujtahid and you start making up rulings on your own. No, know your position. You are young. I'm older than many of these people, 55, 56, 57. I lose count. I'm getting old.
You don't look a day over 57.
No, I can still fight. I'm not bragging, but I'm old, brother. I feel it. Sunnatullah fil ladina khalu min qabl. It's the sunnah of Allah. But I know I'm not a scholar. I'm not a mufti. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a mufti. I do the best that I can, but I got to know my position. So if a question comes that's bigger than my hajm, it's bigger than me, I have to fall back, fall to the black, and reach out to someone who I believe has more knowledge. So what we want our young brothers and sisters to do is be upon your religion with enthusiasm and with seriousness, but know that you are young. There's a hadith that says 3 things will destroy you. 3 things will destroy you. And the first one that he said, Ijabul mar bin-nafsi, a person being impressed with himself. I'm in front of a microphone now, and I'm impressed with myself, who I am. Let's talk about me and what I did. No, man. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, if anyone had the right to be impressed with themselves, it was him, Sallallaahu. But his da'wah was to Allah. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika. Call to the way of your Lord. All of those ayahs. Qul hadhi sabili ad'u ila Allahi ala basira. Tell them, this is my way. I call to Allah on the right way. He didn't call to himself. And when the people took an opportunity to big him up like that, Ya Rasulullah, you're the best of us and the son of the best of us. He would tell them, stop this and don't let a shaitan fool and trick you. Say, Abdullah wa Rasulullah. I'm just a man from Quraysh whose mother, she used to eat a farid, a delicacy that the Arabs used to have. That's how he was. So our da'wah should be to him and not to ourselves or our group or our sheikh. Tie the people to the real Akita, man. Here we talk about Akita. And people could tell you what books to learn from. But practically speaking, we don't find people connecting them to the Quran, connecting them to Allah, connecting them to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But we want to connect the people to myself, to my group, to my masjid, to my madhab, to my imam. No, no way. And there's another reason what's the problem with the statement of that brother from America who studied in Yale University, who mentioned this thing about Akita is open, take whatever you want. No. The Ash'ari, that Akita is named after a man, Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari. The Jahmiyyah, many people don't know about it, but it's one of those famous groups of deviation and kufr. It's named after a man. Okay? Jahm ibn Safwan. All of those Jama'at, all of them, they come as a result of the creation of a human being. And our Aqidah doesn't go back to one individual here or there from Adam's sons or daughters. It goes back to the Kitab of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet, as we mentioned, the way the companions understood it.
Now, Sheikh, we're on this topic of Aqidah, and of course, there's different ways of, how can I put, labeling or describing people who follow the way or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in his actions and his Aqidah, etc. You know, in different countries, like for instance, Indo-Pak region, that type of area, you might hear like Ahlul Hadith. In the West or in the Gulf, you might hear Salafi or things like this. What do these terms mean? I mean, personally, as I've mentioned this to you before, I find some of these terminologies can be problematic. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, if you go to Germany, and within that country, Salafi actually means like ISIS.
In Germany.
In where I live, in Uganda, Salafis are known as Tablighi Jamaat. So what I'm saying is, it's important that when we're using certain terminologies, and even in the West, if you say Salafi, it will mean a particular group of, if you like, or group of brothers. For instance, you understand when someone hears this term, a particular group of brothers would come to mind. If you understand what I mean by that. So I mean, how do we explain these this way? You know.
Scholars of the past, we have to accept and we have to embrace this. The four Imams, Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, Al-Imam Malik, Al-Imam Ahmed, and Imam Al-Shafi'i, rahmatullah alayhim, all four of them accepted these different terms that describe the people of the Sunnah. So if someone is coming today and saying, I'm just a Muslim, that's cool and that's fine and that's dandy, but how can you say you follow those Imams and you're on the madhab of those Imams and all four of them accepted this classification and this categorization? The classification of Ahlul Hadith. That statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "La tazalu ta'ifatu min ummati ala al-haqqi mansura." There will not be a group of people. There will always remain a group of people from my community. They will be the helped, and they would be the ones that are mansur. Al-Imam Ahmed said about this hadith, if it's not al-hadith, this group, I don't know who it is. Who is the Prophet talking? This is not al-hadith. But what did he mean by al-hadith? He meant the people who practice the hadith. As he said, al-hadith are the people who practice the hadith. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa said, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيثُ فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. If the hadith is authentic, that's my madhab. So Imam Ahmed, he said, Ahlul Hadith, the same hadith, that the group will be Mansura, that group will be the Ta'ifa and Mansura, the saved sect, the victorious sect, the Salafi people. All of the Imams of the past, they didn't have anything to say about that. They didn't have a problem with it. But now we find that because of infighting, because of people claiming what is not true, things are getting lost in translation and misappropriated and misunderstood. So I say right now, we have to have some understanding as far as people were giving dawah. If we find in Germany that Germans understand Salafiyya is ISIS, stay away from the word. And if you find over there in Uganda, Salafiyya, people who Salafi or Jamaat Tabligh, stay from the word. You don't have to go into a masjid and use that word at all. But from a theoretic perspective, a knowledge perspective, we shouldn't be predisposed to rejecting it, because we find the scholars that we love, honor, and respect, at least we claim that, all of them were okay with these different names. And they're just synonyms. They're just synonyms. But they are used to divide the people unnecessarily. One of the usul and principles of a Salafiyah is Salafiyah comes to bring people together. It comes to unite people. So you can't take the religion to divide people unnecessarily. Unnecessarily. You and your brothers are on the same thing and you are dividing the people. There's some problem in your comprehension and your application of Salafiyah. Because Salafiyah, al-Islam, seeks to bring Muslims together. And you're seeking to divide them. So in that incident that happened with the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, in the story of the slander of our mother Aisha, that's known as Qissat al-Ifk, when they accused her of committing adultery, when she was left in the desert, and one of the companions came and picked her up, and then they came into Medina alone at midday, and the Munafiqun saw them and said, they're having an affair. When the news hit the Prophet ﷺ, he went to the Masjid and he said, who will help me against a group of people who are saying this thing against my wife and my companion, who I only know good about him? Some of the companions said, we will help you, Ya Rasulullah, because they knew that that guy was from the Ansar. So the people from the Muhajirun who came from Mecca, the companions who came from Mecca, they said, we will help you, knowing that the people were saying that were from the Ansar. They didn't like what was being said, but it wasn't from them. It was from the Ansar. They stood up, we will help you. And then the people from the Ansar, knowing that that man was from them, they said, no. And then both groups stood up. They were about to fight each other, civil war in the Prophet's Masjid. Some people were saying, we're the Ansar. And the other one said, we're the Muhajirin. And both of those names are used in the Quran and the Sunnah. Allah revealed both of those names. Allah revealed both of those names. And yet when the people used it the wrong way, the Prophet said, Sallallaahu alayhi wasallam, ad-da'watul jahiliyyati wa ana bayna adhirikum utrukuha fa innaha muntina. Do you people use the call of the times of Jahiliyyah? And I'm right here with you. Abandon this. It stinks. It has a repugnant odor to it. So if I use, I'm African American, I'm Maliki, I'm this and I'm that, I'm a super Salafi, I'm this, I'm that, I'm Hizbut Tahrir, I'm this. All I'm doing is dividing myself unnecessarily.
Recently, people have been debating online. You know, you've got Muslims debating each other, subhanAllah. And I've seen that recently you actually was a part of some of these videos.
First of all, I would like to tell everybody, the young brothers and the du'at, the salaf of this ummah, they used to come up with principles to save us and to protect us. One of those principles that would help us about where we take our Akita from is that Imam Malik and Imam Ahmed used to say, beware of taking a position that you don't have an imam that preceded you in that statement. That would divinely protect you. So someone can't come now and say, I'm on a new Akita. Everything is okay. Who said that before you? You'll be protected with that principle. Another one of those principles that we have is that the scholar said anyone who debates a lot and he makes that his way of religion, yastakthir min al-mujadila. Anyone who does that a lot, debating people, he will change his colors a lot. He will be on this day one day, and this thing another day, and that thing another day, because your religion is debating. So religion and debating, it has its proper place, its people, its time. But the fitna of the culture we're living in right now, a culture of speaker's corner, millennials, social media, algorithms, followers, views, it makes things that are controversial, everybody is jumping up and everybody has something to say. And it's just a lot of confusion. And the Prophet told the truth, Sallallaahu alayhi wasallam, when he talked about the Ruwaybida. He said that the Ruwaybida is the ignoble person, an ignorant person. He's a nobody, and yet he's talking about the religion. So anybody can get up and talk about the religion. Just throw something out there, watch what's trending, and you're going to get people going to follow that and have things to say. Make takfir of people, tabdi of people, tafsiq of people. He's a kafir, he's a mubtadi, he's a fasiq, he's this, he's that. So for the youngsters out there and for all of us, don't be a person who's debating. Now, this issue of what happened recently is that I was contacted by a brother, Muhammad Hijab, who I met twice prior to that. Once last year in preparation for Hajj. And I was by the house of a brother who graduated from Medina, one of my students. And he's graduated this past year from Kulliyat al-Hadith. I met Muhammad Hijab there. And I had a nice opinion about him. I liked the way he was. He was respectful, respectable, calm. I liked that. He contacted me and said, would I like to do a program with him? And I said, yes, but. And I started to ask some questions about himself and what I had heard. Peter Waqad. I heard this, I heard that. And I'm not one of those people who's just going to take what people tell me about other people. So I did my due diligence and I talked to him directly. إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا. If someone comes to you with news about something or someone, ascertain, and that's what I did. I was pleased with what he had told me and about himself. And I said, you know, people are saying about the brother, he's this, he's that, he's not this, he's not that, he's against the Sunnah, this and that. That's not what I heard from him. That's not what I heard from him. And I said to myself, he's a young brother, mashallah, and he has ability in his lane, giving dawah and debating with non-Muslims. I heard that he was really good at that. But he has some mistakes here and there, things that I don't agree with. So after that particular interview that I gave, some things came out. I wasn't pleased with those things. I wasn't pleased with those things. But is Muhammad Hijab perfect? No, you show me a perfect person giving dawah to Allah. And I show you someone who is an angel or a prophet or a messenger. So I believe someone like that, inshallah, from what I got from him, my relationship with him is that I don't agree with what people are saying. He makes mistakes. I'm free of people who want to bring scholars down. I'm free from from anyone who wants to hit a Salafi. I'm free from that. I'm free from that. That's my life. That's my dawah. That's my deen. But I believe that we should breathe on people. We want people to be with us. We're not those people who, if someone isn't exactly with us on every point, we want to throw him off and crucify him. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So people are allowed to disagree with me and the interview that I held, that I did. You're allowed to disagree with me. That's your prerogative. I don't make wala wa bara upon that. I don't. But I did what I did because I had a narrative that I wanted to share. I had a message that I wanted to share. And I shared that message. And I hope Allah Azza accepts it from me. I got good feedback from some people and I got bad feedback from others. I'm not stopping for that because I got issues going on. But I do take on board what people advise me with. I do take. I mean,
Muhammad Hijab, I know him personally. He's a nice brother. He's young, but I think he has a lot of potential. You know, he certainly in areas like atheism and things like this. You know, he's done some very good work. But as you said, no one's perfect. But I think one advice I would give personally to Brother Muhammad Hijab, myself, and other people who are involved in the dawah is to make use of the elders. Make use of the elders like yourself, other brothers, students of knowledge, people who have traveled, people who have studied, people who have made the mistakes. And just don't rush in putting things out. Check them, you know, consult people, you know, who are older than you. And sometimes this can actually get rid of a lot of mistakes as well, you know.
You know, I'm not into name dropping and things like that, but there are a number of young brothers that are out there that I really have a lot of hope for them in the future. A number of young brothers who listen to advice. There's a brother in Nelson, I think you know him.
Yes.
Abu Abbas, Naveed, brothers like that. Abu Taymiyyah, his brother Yasin, who is studying over in Saudi Arabia right now, as well as Khalid. So many really nice young brothers who they're open to listen and to take advice, and they're growing. My brother there in Birmingham right now, Abu Rayyan, just a lot of young brothers. Allah blessed this brother who has memorized the Quran there from Ottawa in Canada, Abu Hamza Abdurrahman, who comes from...
I met him with you in Medina.
Beautiful brother, man. These young brothers, Allah has blessed them with keen intellects, memorization of the Quran. They have nashat, fitra. I mean, they have that. And I have to respect that. And we want that. So as they grow and develop, we have to realize some of those brothers, they have been exposed to more than us. They have more knowledge than us. So we can't be jealous, but we have more experience than them, for an example. So we help each other. So Muhammad Hijab is a young brother, in my opinion. And I have hope that, inshallah, he wants good and he wants to do good. And I have that conviction that that's what he's about. Because after that interview, he put some things up I wasn't fond of, I wasn't in agreement with. And one of them, he said something about a brother that wasn't okay. And he mentioned the brother's family and it wasn't cool. Advice was given to him and he took it down. He took it down. So I want to say to some of the brothers who are giving dawah that we need to slow down, because it is really a sad state of affairs that we want people to be astray. Allah described the Muslims in the Quran, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً, the believers are brothers. And then he described that brotherhood. محمد رسول الله والذين معه أشداء على الكفار رحماء بينهم. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and those people who are with him are stern and strong against the disbelievers, and they are merciful amongst themselves. Another ayah, أذلة على المؤمنين عزة على الكافرين يجاهدون في سبيل الله ولا يخافون في الله لومة اللائم. They are gentle upon the believers, strong against the non-Muslims, and they wage war in the cause of Allah, and they don't care about the censorship of those who criticize. Ahl Sunnah, as Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah said, they're the most merciful people on the people. Take it easy and be gentle with the people. That's how the Prophet was, Sallallaahu alayhi wasallam. That's how the ulama were. We have this thing, may Allah break your back. We have su'adhan. He's this, he's that. Yes, he made mistakes. My brother Muneer, Mufti Muneer, when he was coming over here, he chose to do something, certain things, go here, go there. People wanted to crucify him. I was disappointed in the way our brothers deal with issues like that. It's immature, it's reckless. And then, brothers like Abdul Haq Baker, Dr. Abdul Haq Baker, he did an interview with this brother, and there were people of a takfir who went in on Dr. Abdul Haq Baker. Where were these brothers in defending his honor? Where were these brothers when it came to defending him? No, brothers are just, absorbed and super indulgent and criticizing him. How could he do that? Why would he do that? He did it because he thought it was going to be beneficial. You may not agree with him. Talk to him. But where are you at when it comes to defending his honor? You were so worried about the honor of this one and that one, which is cool. It's from the deen, no problem. He was talking about people who were extreme, and the brother Muhammad Hijab said something that was inappropriate, and everybody said that's inappropriate. Well, Dr. Abdul Haq Baker advised the brother, alhamdulillah. But where were you in the honor of Dr. Abdul Haq Baker? So it's really weird, Akhi. It's like Donald Trump, to be honest with you. Donald Trump is in America screaming, telling people, if you don't like it here, then get out of here. You're not really from here. Ilham Umar, the senator, and other people. If you don't like it here, get out of here. It's as if people hear that and they don't realize, hey, Donald Trump, this lady Ilham Umar, she came from Somalia, but may Allah guide us and guide her. Help us and help her. She was born in Somalia, but she's been an American longer than your wife. All of your children come from immigrants. So why don't we think, it's weird that people don't make those kinds of connections. So here, I'm saying that to say, yeah, you were worried about the honor of that brother, and that's okay, as I said. And that's why Hijab was advised. Come on, man, take that down. That's not cool. Don't make it personal. But where were you when it came to the haq of Abdul Haq Baker, when people said he was a kafir? That's worse than what Hijab was saying. They were saying he was a kafir. So where's the intisar of your brother? So we're living in a time of besa.
We don't have much time left, and I want to just get on to a final bit of advice from yourself, and inshallah I'd like to do more podcasts with you in the future as well, if that's possible. But I'd like some
problem.
final points of advice to the Muslims just before we go.
Well, I give advice to the community with the taqwa of Allah Azza in making islah and rectifying the affairs. It starts off with everybody taking personal responsibility for their own selves, and then we go down based upon who's under your supervision. The community, the mujtama, the society, it is not rectified by the ruler. It's not rectified by your group. It's rectified by each individual taking it upon himself. Try to be a better Muslim. And as a father, you try to help your family to be better Muslims, and in our communities and so forth and so on. So my advice is to have the taqwa of Allah, as the Prophet ﷺ was advised with, and as he brought that book of Allah Ta'ala, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah, fear Allah Azza wa Jal to the best of your ability. And I think we're living in a time right now where, as he says, Sallallaahu alaihi wasallam, the people have come together against this community like the people who converge on one plate. Democrats, Republicans, Labor, Nazis, far right, the left, LGBT, rich, poor, white, black, African, Arabs. Everybody came, and the common denominator of hate is Islam and the Muslims. And with that being the case, it doesn't make any sense for us to be enemies to one another unnecessarily, and we're on the same thing. Pull each other close, and we're on the same thing. And let's get closer, because it's the deen that brings us together, and we're on the same thing. As for the Muslims who are not on what we're on, let's have some rahmah on them. And let's do our best to get them in a position where they can come close, as opposed to you're not with me and you're an enemy of mine because the Salaf said this, the Salaf said that. Brother, you are not understanding the situation. If you would allow me to tell this story of what happened, it'd take 1 minute, 2 minutes. This Saturday, I went to a wedding of a brother who accepted Islam 2 years in Ramadan in Bradford. I was given a khutbah at Islam Bradford.
I know
His brother became a Muslim. His brother was exposed to some brothers from SP, but he didn't get with that. They were giving him dawah. He would listen, and he was nice, but he wasn't on that. One time he came here. He used to come to Liverpool for the Juma every so often to stay in touch with me. We were walking out of my office to go around to the Masjid, and some of these brothers from SP were standing there. They don't know this brother. This brother is young, and he said, with a big smile on his face and love, Assalamu alaikum. They didn't know that brother, but just because he was with me, they didn't give him any love, no salams. And they looked at him as if he crawled from under a rock. It was no love. And this is a sincere beginning brother.
Muslim,
25, 26. He's a chemist. He's a good brother. Ahsabu kadhalik. Wallahu hasibuhu. When they looked at him and they didn't give him that love that he was giving them, he said, and he's been accepted to Al-Medina now as well. He said to me, they don't even know me. He was hurt, shocked, because he saw the way they looked and he knew who they were. He was hurt, but it was a lesson for him. And that lesson was, this is not the Sunnah. This is not how you treat people. He got married Saturday. I went to his wedding. At the wedding was some of those brothers from SB at the wedding. We're in the wedding and they're kuffar there, his relatives kuffar. It wasn't a big hall, so we could hear the women going, lit, 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 lit. We can hear that. And they were doing the duff, and you could hear the women's voices. You couldn't see them. You could hear anashid with music. I'm not criticizing, I'm saying that's there. So some things were munkar that were there. When the brothers came in from SP, 6, 7 of them, when they saw me, it was like, wow. So they left. And they know this brother. They know this brother because when they came in, they hugged him and everything. He's not with them, but they're his friends. They know him. Some of them left. They left.
Just because of you.
Because the Mubtadi was there. Abu Usama the Mubtadi. What about the non-Muslims were there? Nah, you're worse than the Mubtadi. You're worse than them. Because the non-Muslims are kafir, Mubtadi is more dangerous, the Salaf said. The Salaf said, Mubtadi is more dangerous.
SubhanAllah.
What about the, no. What? No, the Mubtadi. And it's that type of mentality, brother, that some of us has. And it's just not those brothers. All of these jama'at have people who are like that.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
And I don't want our young brothers and sisters to love and hate. Wala wa bara, based upon your imam, based upon your madhab, based upon your masjid, based upon your teacher. So it's not permissible. That's my advice. Stay balanced. Stay safe and stay sucker free. And stay Salafi, those of you who are Salafi, and try to be Salafi, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Just before we finish, I just want to direct people towards some of your work. We have the Green Lane YouTube channel. You have a lot of lectures on there. You have weekly lectures. Is it on a Thursday?
I do a weekly lecture in Green Lane
so
on Thursday.
If you're down in Birmingham, you can get down to Green Lane. Any other lectures you do throughout the week?
Yeah, I'm mostly here. I'm here. This is my community, and this is what I have to deal with.
Masjid Rahma, you're here on a daily basis. So we encourage people to tune in and benefit. And hopefully we'll have you back in the future, Sheikh.
Shukran, ya akhi, John Fontaine. May Allah bless you, man, and your family.
And inshallah, hopefully, I'll see you on Hajj again.
Inshallah.
And hopefully we'll be there together, inshallah.
Labbaik Allahumma labbaik. Looking forward to seeing you, right?
Jazakallah. Actually, just one last thing.
Sure.
You told me a very nice thing which stuck with me when we was on, I think, Umrah Hajj, one of them. And you're saying people have different strengths in their worship. Some people, they're very good at fasting. They've got the Monday and Thursday locked off. Some people are very good at the tahajjud. Some people are good in charity. And you were saying that this is just as your thing. As you're saying,
make it clear.
For you,
teach.
Yeah, for
teach,
you,
brother. That's what the people from the Nation of Islam used to say. Make it clear. Teach, brother. Go ahead.
No, you were saying for one of your things is the Umrah and the Hajj. This is something that you personally connect with, and you found one of your strengths.
Yeah, Akhi, Hajj is an ibadah that is awesome, especially when you're giving dawah, because you have these pilgrims who are there, and they're like a blackboard or a whiteboard. And as the teacher, you take the opportunity at Hajj to call them to the Sunnah, to call them to Salat, to call them to Tawheed, to address so many issues. That's in terms of dawah. It's an awesome experience. And as far as performing Hajj itself, for me, it's that ibadah from the ibadat of al-Islam that resonates with me. I like that jihad because you're so tired. When you perform Hajj, you feel at the end of it, I think I did something for Islam. I felt like I did something for al-Islam. So when our iman goes up in Ramadan, because of the fasting, Hajj is the same way. Your iman goes up in a different way. And that's why we find people like Hassan ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib and other companions. They used to make Hajj, radiallahu anhum, 20 times, 30 times, walking. And they would make Hajj over and over again. And anyone who does the Hajj correctly, he'll return like the day his mother gave birth to him. So it is in and of itself, from all angles, a tremendous ibadah. And from the ni'mah of Allah that He afforded me the opportunity to go every year. Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. Good reminder. So anyone who's not been to Hajj, make the plans and get it done, inshallah.
And in saying what you're saying, your thing may not be Hajj. So your thing may be being respectful to your parents, birrul walidain, like some of the tabi'in and other people. Uwais al-Qarni, the Prophet said he was really good to his mother. That's your thing. His thing is giving sadaqah. His thing is giving the adhan. His thing is praying in the first row on the right side. His thing is doing the Quran in a month. His thing over there is, whatever it happens to be. Working with the youth, mentoring people. Just getting your lane and do you to the best of your ability, and don't hate other people who are doing the things that they're doing.
Do something for Allah with ihsan.
That's it, brother. Ihsan.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum. Shukran lakum. I appreciate it, man. Welcome.